Hi, my name is Jeannie Lauren Dowden for Conduit News. Today we have Representative Jeremy Wooldridge joining us on Conduit, here to talk about a lot of different things. Of course, the primary race over there in his district, but also just some wins from the past legislative session and important key legislation that he has worked on. Representative Wooldridge, thank you so much for being on Conduit with us today.
Well, good morning, Jenny, and thank you for the opportunity and for having me.
Of course, I really appreciate it. As I said off camera, this is your first time being on Conduit, and so I know our viewers will appreciate that. Just briefly, everyone is familiar with you, but if you would just tell us a little bit about your district, how long you've been in the legislature, things like that.
Absolutely. So, Jeremy Wooldridge, served House District 1, which is parts of Greene, all of Clay, and parts of Randolph County here in Northeast Arkansas. Honored to serve, and I have been in the legislature now for 2 sessions. So, I started, served a full term, and I'm midway through a second term now.
How's your second term been compared to that first time around?
It's a learning curve. I tell folks all the time when you run for the legislature, you campaign and you get out there and you meet people and you talk about issues. And then the day you're elected, you're expected to kind of be an expert on everything from cosmetology to tow truck drivers to everything in between. And it's just not possible for folks to be experts on everything. That's why it's so important to me to stay plugged in and engaged with my district. I encourage people to follow us on social media. We're out there working hard every day, being accessible and being available to people because the best ideas come from you. And, I always reference the district that I serve, not my district. The district doesn't belong to me. The seat doesn't belong to me. The people of Northeast Arkansas have given me an opportunity to, on their behalf, go to Little Rock and be their voice. And I take that very seriously. And it's something that I strive to do and do well every day. So.
Let's talk about this most recent legislative session. I don't know about you, but it feels like a lifetime ago, and it was only just a few months. You guys, I think what stands out to me about this past legislative session, there weren't any like really big ticket pieces of policy
Right.
compared to 2023, like we have with the LEARNS Act, the Protect Arkansas Act, that sort of thing. But what was your overall impression of this past legislative session?
I thought it was a great session. We accomplished a whole lot of things on behalf of Arkansans, and I appreciate and am proud of the work that we've done. I have said throughout the process, while I'm proud of the legislation that I've sponsored, the legislation that I've passed or been a part of passing, my most prideful thing is the way that I represent my constituents and being available and accessible to them. So when we talk about the session and we talk about the issues that we faced, I'm proud of all of those issues. I'm proud of what we were able to do. Speaker Evans has done a great job in his first session as Speaker of the House and really led the body in a way that I think makes all of Arkansas proud. Obviously, have enjoyed a good working relationship with the governor, appreciate her leadership. So I thought it was a good session overall, and the people of Arkansas at the end of the day came away better off than they were prior to.
You mentioned that you stay close to your constituents and you're hearing from them during that session, and then also now. And as you're campaigning, what do you hear from voters there as being the most important issue or something that they really want you to tackle and work on?
Well, I mean, there are lots of issues that voters bring up. Energy cost are one of them. Obviously, property taxes and the tax burden in Arkansas, such as that is. And then, obviously, in this area of the state, for me currently, one of the main issues that we have been faced with right now is the farming crisis that we're facing, not only in Arkansas but across the nation with our producers.
Yeah, and I wanted to briefly talk with you about that. I believe you had a chance to attend the town hall that was there in
Yes, ma'am.
Northeast Arkansas a few weeks ago. Just give us your overall impression of, that farming crisis there, and really it's like you mentioned, all over the state, all over the country. How did we get here, and what is it like moving forward? And also, like, what, as far as on the state side of things, I know that people are talking about things that can be done on the federal level, but here in Arkansas, what can be done to help bring relief?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it is something that this didn't happen overnight and obviously won't be solved overnight. This is a kind of a culmination of policy over several years that have led to this, but basically the deterioration of the market. All the farmers that I work with daily, I visit with daily, and I'm talking to, they want to market for their product. They want to be able to grow and produce feed, not only, Arkansans and Americans, but they want to market for their product. So that's what we have to figure out as we move forward. And obviously that has to be settled and solved on the federal level. And hats off to our federal delegation. They have really taken a great approach to trying to help partner with the executive branch and solve this problem. I know it is something that has taken a lot of their attention, a lot of their focus, and they're working hard every day and partnering with the state to try to figure out what that solution is for our producers.
Yeah, you mentioned that you talk to farmers and they want to market. What does that tangibly look like? And do you ever think, or do they ever talk about just there being too much government interference in that?
I think that different producers have different opinions and perspective on that. I've talked to some producers that want the government completely out of it. They just want to be able to grow their product and sell their product without any kind of government interference interaction. And then you talk to other producers that believe that or understand that this is somewhat of a bargaining chip with other countries, and they know their product is being used such as that. So they understand the need for some assistance and subsidies there to make sure that they are whole. So that's really, from what I have understood from a lot of producers in Northeast Arkansas and around the state, there's not a consensus of that group of how they want that handled moving forward. But the thing that
Yeah.
I continue to hear over and over is we just want a fair market and a place to sell our product. And I think that that's reasonable.
I think so too. Do you think, or are they talking about the tariffs at all, and maybe how that has played into this?
I think that's a piece of the puzzle. I don't think that there's any one thing that you can blame this on. Again, this is a
Yeah.
culmination of years of policy, of different things that have led us to where we're at today. So I don't think anybody necessarily thinks or believes that that one piece of policy has caused this crisis, but I think that it definitely plays a role along with other things that have happened.
Yeah, I want to go back to the session now, if you don't mind,
Sure.
and some pieces of legislation that went through. You were co-chair of the House Public Health Committee, and you can tell us, what other committees you sat on if you like.
Sure.
But I was in there often, just tracking some bills and following some bills. And one at the very end of session that I'd like your opinion on was Senator Penzo's fluoride bill, Senate Bill 2, and everyone knows, we talked about a lot, that one just simply repealed a mandate. That's it.
Mhm.
And I had a really difficult time getting out of the Senate. It finally came to you guys at the very end of session. And in committee, I believe only, I think 6 Republicans. I'd have to go back and look, but you were one of the few that voted in support of Senate Bill 2 and moving it out of the House committee into the House floor. It failed, and ultimately, died there. But why did you vote in support of that? There seemed to be a lot of pushback on that bill. Give us your thoughts.
Absolutely. So, like I said earlier, when you get elected to the legislature, you're expected to be an expert on all areas of
Yeah.
state government, of federal policy and government, and then of industry. And I always say that you want to partner with folks that are smarter than you. I'm fond of saying when I'm in a room, I'm never the smartest guy in the room. And if I am, you should all be ashamed. And that to me, what I mean by that is I am coachable, I'm teachable, and I'm willing to dig in and do the work because my intentions are pure. And I want to make sure that we set forth the best policy for Arkansans. So every committee meeting that I go into, I don't necessarily go in there with my mind made up or with a decision already in mind. I value the process and I want to hear testimony. I want to hear from my other committee members, and I want to hear what their take is, why they think this is what's best for Arkansas. So we had a lot of interesting dialogue and debate whenever we had talked about that bill. I had gone back prior to and watched the discussion on the Senate end also to try to be a little bit more well informed. I met with some of the dental folks in my area. I met with some of the water people in my area that are water superintendents and just asked, tell me what your take is on this. And in my understanding of that bill, it didn't take that away. It just
Hmm.
took that to the local level, and it allowed experts at the local level to decide what was best for their water system and for their people. And ultimately, I guess I, at my core, believe that government works its best, the closest to the people. So anytime that the state can step out of the way and allow local communities or municipalities to make a decision, that's what should happen.
Yeah, we agree with that. There was another bill that uh, had some contentious moments in House Public Health, and that was by Representative Eubanks. It was House Bill 1915. And, some argued that that bill would have grown government and increased dependency. I believe that you were in support of that bill. Tell us why you thought that was a good bill.
So remind me, I don't have them all memorized by number.
I can tell you what we labeled it, and that's not going to be the exact label. I can look it up. It was the one that basically it allowed more people to be eligible for welfare benefits. It removed not counting certain assets
Yes.
for people to become eligible.
Absolutely. So I had visited with lots of elderly folks and different folks in my community. So senior citizens, that's near and dear to my heart. I want to make sure that we're taking care of those folks. I tell people, I teach a class at my Sunday school or Sunday school class at my church for the teenagers, and I tell them pick a scripture, pick a chapter, pick something in the Bible, and kind of make that the motto of your life. Mine is Matthew 25. What you do for the least of these, you've done for me. I believe that truly at my core. And I want to make sure that that is kind of what my service is rooted in. And that's doing for those that can do nothing for you in return. To me, that's kind of that test of life. It's easy to do for people that can benefit you. It's easy to be kind to people that are kind to you. But the true test is what you do for those that can do nothing for you in return. So obviously, I don't want anyone taking advantage of the system, but we all understand that there are situations out there where people need assistance. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's welfare or a handout. We just want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to vet and make sure that people that are needing that are trying to work, that are trying to do the best that they can to succeed, if they qualify and that parameter set at the federal level, not the state level, that we're administering those funds appropriately. What I understood that bill to be was allowing the net asset to grow um, a small amount so people could have somewhat of a savings. What I kept hearing over and over from elderly folks that were utilizing that service was that they can't even plan for a funeral. They can't prepare or save for funeral expenses or other things because that asset limit was so low. That's what I understood Representative Eubanks to be trying to accomplish by that bill, and I felt like that was reasonable.
It never came over to the House side, even though it tried countless times, 5 times. And this would be the appropriation bill for additional funding for the proposed prison in Franklin County.
Right.
So the House never had an opportunity to vote on that. It couldn't get out of the Senate. Give us your thoughts and opinion on, at the time, that bill. I believe it was Senate Bill 309. People can correct me.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you think they are now? And are you in support of still building that prison in Franklin County?
I think that's a complex situation, and I think there's really no simple answer or solution to complex problems. What I do believe, we ran the Protect Act a couple of sessions ago, and we talked about violent offenders and them serving more of their time. I'm a firm believer in we need to lock up people that we're scared of. Not people that we're mad at. So anyone that creates or causes a heinous crime towards another Arkansan need to be housed in a
Yeah.
secure facility like that. It is obvious in my visiting with sheriffs and local communities that we are housing a lot of inmates in county facilities. That's unfair to our counties. It probably creates somewhat of a burden for these local communities to be able to be as tough on crime in their local community from a space capacity issue that they would want to be. So I think that there is no doubt that we need additional bed space. Now, I think the $1 million question is how do we get it? Is that a prison? Is that expanding the footprint of current facilities? Are there staffing issues that would allow us to house more folks in the current facilities? Again, that was never able to be debated or hashed out on the House side. So I don't have all of the information to make an informed decision. But what I can say is I believe that we need additional bed space, and I believe that we need to get violent offenders out of county jails and into the Department of Corrections. How we do that, I'm not sure yet, but I look forward to the opportunity to partner with not only the executive branch, but my colleagues moving forward and figure out a way that we can solve that in a way that's good for all Arkansans.
Well, and you probably are going to say, I'm not going to answer a hypothetical, Jenny Lauren, but had that bill at that time come over to the House side, or as you were watching, or if ALC something came up and you were on that committee and it was additional funding for the proposed prison in Franklin County, at this time, would you say, yes, I support this moving forward there in that county, or not right now? We need to figure something else out.
Well, so that is hypothetical, but I'm going to answer it. So
Okay.
when you go back to the session, we didn't know all of the things that we know now, right? So I
Yeah.
guess if I were answering that during the session without knowing all of the things that I know now, I would have probably been more inclined to be supportive of a prison. Knowing what we know now, there's some feasibility and other issues that need to be addressed. I try to always be open-minded. Again, I've had a good relationship with the executive branch and worked with them on numerous issues. I want to be supportive. We all come to Little Rock, we all come to the Capitol with, I hope, one goal in mind, and that's to do right by the people of Arkansas. That's my intention every time that I walk through the doors. And when I come in and I sit under the dome, it's not lost on me that 35,000 of my friends and my neighbors sent me to do what was best for them so they could go about their daily life. So I try to always keep that at the center of every decision that I make. But had that come to the House during the session, I would have looked forward to the debate. I would have looked forward to hearing both sides of that. But again, my two-prong approach kind of to life is tell me in a way that I can't say no and show me that I can afford it.
Yeah.
I think the need is there. We know that the need for additional bed space is there. Can we afford it? And have we checked off all the no's to make sure that that side is feasible? I don't know that we have.
Another cluster of legislation, I guess you could call
Mhm.
it, would be some of the election integrity slash ballot initiative legislation bills that
Right.
Senator Hammer ran. I was looking again at your record, and there
Mhm.
were, I believe it was 207, 208, 209, Senate Bill 2, those, there was a cluster that you voted against, and then one
Mhm.
that you voted for.
Right.
Um, like we said, it's been several months, so we don't have to dive into each one of those, but
Right.
um, you know, I, I would say more so on the Senate side, everyone
Mhm.
seemed to, just easily breeze through and pass those with a yes. On the House side, there was more discussion, as there normally is,
Right.
and more Republicans, even though they passed, more Republicans voted against, some of those. Where do you believe we stand in Arkansas right now regarding election integrity and even paper ballots? People will want to know where you stand on paper ballots, but also, what was your overall opinion on those bills regarding, people argue that it would make it harder for constituents to get something on the ballot.
Mhm. That was my opposition to them. I'm all for election integrity. Um, we're only able to serve as long as we have a pure election process because we want to make sure that the people's voice, the will of the people, is taken to the Capitol. Correct. So we want to make sure that that process is sacred, that it is protected. We've passed a lot of election integrity pieces of legislation to make sure that that process is sacred, that it's safe, that people can have confidence when they go and vote, that they know that the election process is safe in Arkansas. And I know
Mhm.
Secretary of State has touted where we are in election integrity and how we've moved close to the top in terms of the most secure and safe elections, and I'm proud of that in Arkansas. For the ballot initiative process, I believe firmly that the people have the right and should have the ability to petition their government. It is a functioning part of our government in my belief system. I think that when things have worked in longevity, you have to explain to me why they would need to be changed. So for the past however long, people have had the opportunity to get signatures and petition their government and get an initiative on the ballot. I don't have to agree with the initiative to
Yeah.
support the fundamental right of someone to be able to do that. So I guess I kind of subscribe to that. You can't pick and choose when it's good for you or when it's bad for you. The rules have to remain the same. The principle has to be consistent and the same. And we either believe in that fundamental right or we don't. We can't just believe in it when it benefits us. Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
it does. And I think that's what a lot of people argued, kind of the ends justify the means of it.
Mm-hmm.
There were, and understandably so, issues that conservatives care about deeply. And, this is a way to stop those from ever getting on the ballot. Well, that's, you know, I- and so I think that was difficult for a lot of conservatives to watch. Paper ballots, this is also another issue that conservatives care about, all the way from Donald Trump, down to the local level. People
Mm-hmm.
say, to really make our elections secure, we need to go back to paper ballots. Have you given any thought to that? What is your opinion?
I really haven't. I have visited with some of my clerks and election commissioners here in Northeast Arkansas who seem to be opposed to that for a couple of different reasons. One is the manpower that it would take to do it timely. And I think that we deserve timely results for our elections. And then two is the human error aspect of it in terms of a ballot being misplaced, miscounted, recorded incorrectly. So I think that all of those things are valid points. To me, the electronic way that we vote currently, and I've asked the Secretary of State previously, the last two election cycles, are the things that we hear true? Are these connected to the internet? They assure me that they're not. Are these able to be hacked? They assure me that they're not. So I know that there is, when they're tallied, they're transported to another place and tallied and then back to Arkansas. I don't understand enough about that process to know if there's an opportunity there for fraud. But I think that, like anything else, you've got to weigh the good versus the bad. And for me, I think that there's a lot of potential for error with paper ballots. Again, I don't think that would be anybody's intention, but I think that
Mhm.
there is a lot of opportunity. I'm not opposed to paper ballots if we can find a way to do them in which we understand that there's oversight and they can be done timely, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand that. A second ago, and then I promise we'll move away from all this
Sure.
legislation, but I'm just curious because I've never really had the opportunity to talk with you. Something that will be on the ballot next year is a constitutional amendment, and it concerns economic development districts.
Right.
That was by Senator Dismay and Representative Beatty.
Mm-hmm.
And, originally it never was able to even get out of House state agencies, but it was brought back at the very end. And again, some people argue that one, the government doesn't create jobs, and two, this is just picking winners and losers with
Mm-hmm.
tax dollars. I know that you supported that bill. So if you would just tell us why you believe that is a good bill and why it should be on the ballot for people to vote on.
Absolutely. So, I have lived all of my life in rural Arkansas, and I love rural Arkansas. I choose to live here. I want to live here. And I ran for the legislature to make sure that it was an option for my kids to live here and their kids to live here. I've said from the get go, if my boys choose to live anywhere else in the world, I can be okay with that. I'm not going to like it, but I can be okay with that. But if living here is not an option and I didn't do something to make it an option, that's something that I don't know if I can forgive myself for.
Mm.
So that's why I ran for the legislature, to be able to make sure that those opportunities exist for my kids to live here, to work here, to raise their family here, to have a good paying job here, and then raise my grandkids hopefully close to me. So economic development is extremely important to me, and it's extremely important to me in rural parts of our state. Little Rock, Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas, some of those areas don't face the challenges that all of rural Arkansas faces. So to me, this is a tool in the tool belt to allow a community to come together and create an opportunity for their community to have some additional things that create development, attraction, those kind of things for their community. And I think that we need to have every available option for rural Arkansas to be able to come together. And again, at a local level, self-govern. The things I wanted to make sure about that bill was that they were subject to audit. They are, and that there was oversight there because anytime tax dollars are involved, there needs to be transparency.
Okay. I recently received one of your flyers, and it's wild that we're in that season already. And I just wanted to ask you about a few things. about that, and it kind of it deals with legislation as well. Keeping more money in the pockets of Arkansans by eliminating the grocery tax and lowering income and property taxes. Do you believe that you guys went far enough this past legislative session as far as eliminating taxes? What are your thoughts on the income tax? Completely eliminating it? What needs to happen for us to get there? And then two, people talk about property taxes all of the time, eliminating those. Governor
Mhm.
DeSantis right now in Florida, he's talking about that a lot. And I guarantee you probably Florida will get that done first.
Right.
Um, what is your opinion on the taxes here in Arkansas? What can we continue to cut? And do you think we'll get there?
I think that we all want to be fiscally conservative and we want to be fiscally responsible. That's what we've tried to do as a legislature over the past two sessions that I've been involved in part of that process. I believe that we have put or tried to put a plan into place. And if you look back over the last 15 years or so, you can see kind of where that really started to take effect and we started to decrease and lower those tax rates to make Arkansas attractive, not only to business, but to residents. We want people to move into our state. That's the balancing act for me. We want to be fiscally responsible, but we also realize that we've got an obligation to build roads and bridges and have facilities in the state of Arkansas to house criminals. We've got to make sure that we have the opportunity to do all of those things. And when we can, lower that burden on the taxpayer. So we're a nonprofit, if you will. We want to break even. We want to make sure that we collect enough cumulatively together because you and I can't build our own roads. So we're going to pool our money together and we're going to take care of that issue, but we don't want to overpay for that road. So it's finding that balancing act of how do we maintain adequate services, adequate infrastructure, some long-term planning for the future, and not overburden the people of Arkansas. And that's where I think that we're trying to get to.
Yeah, that kind of to me makes me question, people have different opinions or beliefs about this, but when you consider the role of government, what do you see as being just the essential role, and what does that look like here in Arkansas? And do you think that at times we delve into topics or areas that really it's not the government's job?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I believe in limited government. And again, I think that government should do for us collectively what we can't do for ourselves individually. What I can do for myself individually, I should be able to do, and the government should stay out of the way. What we can't do individually and we have to do as a group or collectively, that's where the role of government should be, in my opinion. So I think that I can spend my money better than the state of Arkansas can spend my money. So as much of it as can stay in my pocket, I'm going to choose where that's injected into our economy, not the state.
Before I let you go, many people will be asking this, or they may have already asked you. You, of course, in your primary race, are running against Senator Blake Johnson. Tell us why you decided to run for Senate, and you may see it this way, you may not, but some would say that you're running to essentially unseat an incumbent.
Right. Well, I am running for the Senate. I'm not running opposed to or against anyone. I'm just running for the Senate. I live in Senate District 21, and I believe that that seat belongs to the people of the district, just like House District 1. That seat belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to an individual. So that's the reason for elections, is to make sure that everyone has an opportunity if they feel that is what they should do to run. When I go and speak at events in communities, I tell people, get engaged. That's the most important thing, is to get involved and run for office, even if that means running against me, because we need people who believe in good government and who are willing to give of their time and give of themselves to serve the state of Arkansas. So I'm running for the Senate. I'm running for Senate District 21. And like I had mentioned to you earlier, I I didn't intend to serve in the legislature at all. That was not my goal in life, to be a member of the legislature. I'm a Christian. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm an Arkansan. I just want to serve my community. And like I mentioned, I have a beautiful wife, Stephanie, at home, and two little boys, Jax and Knox, who are at um, Marmaduke School District. And I want to ensure that they have an opportunity to live here, to raise their families here, to make a good living here in Northeast Arkansas. So I'm running to make sure that that is an opportunity for them.
As I've mentioned before, this is one of probably the most important primary races that people will be watching. I can remember even before you announced that there were endorsements coming out for Senator Blake Johnson, all the way from the governor to other elected officials. What are your thoughts on that? Do you just give us your thoughts on those endorsements?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, those were hitting before I had officially announced that I was running for the Senate, but I have a great working relationship with all of those people. I have a lot of respect for our governor, for our lieutenant governor, for our attorney general, for other folks that have made endorsements in this race. The only endorsement that I'm looking for is the endorsement of the people of Northeast Arkansas.
What would you like people to know about your Senate race? Of course, it's still a little early, but filing will be here soon. And then, of course, March 3rd, it'll be here before we know it.
That's
Before we
right.
go, what would you like people to know about that Senate race?
I would encourage everyone go to our Facebook page, Jeremy Wooldridge for Arkansas State Senate. Follow us. You know, actions speak louder than words. I could tell you all kinds of things about what I want to do or what I want to accomplish or how hard I will work for you. But I'm proving every day how hard I have worked for you and how hard I will continue to work for you. So join us on the journey. Pray for us. Follow along, and we're excited about this race. We're excited about the opportunity to serve Arkansans here in District 21.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Conduit. Really appreciate it. And I hope that as the primary season continues, you'll come back on and update us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Would love to be on anytime.
Thank you.